I'm going to see if I timed it right. I'm saying that we're live. Hello, everybody. Wednesday night golf show from awesomemode.com. Myself, Ben Raza, here as always with Jason Roslin. It's not the U.S. Open. We're getting closer. We got RBC Canadian Open, which is not bad. This is a strong field. What do you think?
Yeah, it's really interesting because it may be a strong field or seems so. Obviously, we've got a good amount of the top 10 in the world here, but when you get outside of like the top 8 or 9 golfers, dude, it's crazy. It's so top heavy. I don't know if we've had this top heavy of a field all year, and it definitely makes for interesting because it's almost like everybody over 9K is going to be at least 10% owned this week. So it's almost hard to get that much leverage. At least, over 9K, we get one or two that we're able to, get under 10%, but not this week, really top heavy, which is interesting. And then we got some players that kind of screwed us last week, or at least screwed me. Obviously Patrick Cantlay, being one of my homeboys, I should have cleaned up, but I got straight up Keegan Bradley last week. At 7,600, he was so easy to pair with Patrick Cantlay. And then of course I had another great Cantlay line with Finau, who was like 90% owned. So I guess it wasn't that bad. But how about you? Any Cantlay lines without those big bombs?
So last week was an example of just, surviving. I had one Cantlay lineup total, and I only had 2 6-6s, and he was one of them. Team made a really big run on Sunday. It was him and Tiger up top, and it really salvaged anything because, like most people, the 6-6 was very low again.
Incredible.
When you talk about Rory, you talk about Kuchar, Keegan with a full Keegan experience. It was very difficult, but my God, was Patrick Cantlay one of the best rounds I've seen in a long time. Just dominant. Adam Scott did not lose the tournament.
Nope.
He did exactly what he needed to do, and he still lost. So props to Cantlay. Obviously going to be a hot topic next week when, at Pebble.
Yeah, and he's coming in to Pebble with some incredible form. So is Brooks, so is DJ, and even so now we're even allowed to include Spieth in there with 3 straight top 10. So definitely going to be super interesting next week. We'll get to that at the end of the show. Before we move on, Matt Kuchar, yet again in the news. Always like to just bring that up because I think it's funny. I like to get your opinion. This time he was trying to skirt the field a little bit. I'm not going to lie. If I was in his situation, I might have argued. I don't know. It was pretty out there. And I mean, terrible break. Don't get me wrong, but God, he argued till he was blue, and I don't know, another bad look.
That's the thing. Like I'm certainly not a golfer. I get, asking, certainly even trying to push for it. But there was a large part where it was like, it's not happening, and he just kept going. Like, I don't know what he was doing there. It was clear. Even Ricky it kind of looked like he was saying, like, what are you doing?
After a while, after they explained that it was not an embedded ball rule, Ricky was like, okay, this is time to move on here. And Ricky kind of just stood there the whole time, which is great, classic Ricky, just wanting to be involved in the situation. Of course, he was there to congratulate Patrick Cantlay on his win. What a surprise. That's becoming Ricky's thing. So we'll move on to this week, and we'll start off with just a little bit of drama before we get into kind of our routine, just because it is with the top 2 guys in the world. Before I came on today and this morning and the last 2 days, there's been a little bit of hiccups with DJ, and that he's no longer using Claude Harmon as his coach. Now, what's the real reason behind this? Who knows? Is he giving a little bit too much attention to Brooks Koepka, who he also teaches, or what's really going on there? But we know that they have a bromance. We know that the bromance feuded in Paris. What do you make of this little snafu with DJ and the coach here?
It's so tough with DJ because he's so laid back. He doesn't make a big deal of anything. I don't read too much into it. I do think it'll be telling not just how he plays this week, but how he finishes. He's been on a great run here, and obviously something's going on with the change. Yep. But with DJ, he's kind of a level-headed guy. It's hard to really glean much information from it.
Yeah, he's so mild-mannered. I mean, you can't tell. Even when they talked to him, I watched the interview today, and they talked to him about it, and it was like, oh, I'm still kind of working with him. It was such a DJ answer. You're just not going to get anything straight out of them. Thought I'd bring that up because they are the 2 obviously most expensive players in the field. They are known as buddies, so always like to bring stuff up like that. So move on to our normal routine. We'll check in the weather, and finally, man, we can spend about 5 seconds on it. We've got nothing, no edge, beautiful weather, go out and play golf. Nothing to worry about. Love seeing that. If you want to worry about 3 miles per hour for the wind difference, man, you got other things to worry about. Trust me. So we can skip right over that. We'll go right into the featured groups, and I'd like to talk about this because obviously it's normally some of the best players, but you also get to watch the coverage as well. So I like to talk about who we're going to see there. Looks like tomorrow morning, we're going to get Kuchar, Simpson, and Rory, and Corey Connors is playing with DJ and Jim Furyk. So I love Showdown for mornings because it does seem like the morning tends to have the better scores on both days, not just Thursday, but Thursday and Friday. Of course, it's a little softer. The greens are as pure as they could be. Are you looking at something like that for the Showdowns and somebody like a Corey Connors who's known for birdies and pair him up straight with DJ?
I think it's totally reasonable. It's not a recipe for just automatic success, but all in all, I think you're going to see if everything is equal, going out early is beneficial. You get the best greens. Usually it's less windy. Not that wind's going to be a factor this week, but I don't mind that at all. Showdown, the pricing's a little different. So like you're able, if you wanted to play DJ and like Rory, it's less egregious than in the main line. So you can do that. And I certainly looked to a couple of those guys and paired them up. You got to take a cheaper or two. But again, this is Showdown. We see guys pop all the time. They can't sustain it for 72 holes, but they get out of the gate hot. Corey Connors, obviously, legit player, always a threat.
Yeah, and I like to, if you have PGA Tour Live like I do and are obsessed, I like watching the guys in the morning. It's a good thing to wake up to on Thursday. The PM guys we're going to get, which we'll get Friday morning, McDowell, Watson, Piercy, Koepka, Snedeker, and Justin Thomas. So that just kind of wants out the featured groups. Again, I like to play the morning guys. It seems like they get an easier golf course. But moving on past them, unless you want to talk about stacking any of those guys.
No, I think that about covers it.
Okay. So some of the marquee groups, though, that I want to talk about, going off right first. And here's a guy that you and I have talked about quite a bit, and he hasn't come out of the funk like we've seen somebody else who has a very similar official world golf ranking that I'm pretty keen to. I'm talking about Alex Noren, and he tees off first with Ben Crane and Sam Saunders, who maybe Sam Saunders I'm a little interested in. He just torched the that U.S. Open qualifier.
I saw that.
But Alex Noren, 7,700. He has come out of the doldrums a little bit, scored 70 DraftKings points last week. So that means he's making birdies. What do you make Alex Noren, and is he in your player pool this week?
He is. God, I keep thinking that he's really, it's a guy, legitimate, top-end golfer for a while there, destroyed Europe, came over here and showed some flashes. Certainly thought he was going to get a win there. I think that was Farmers, I want to say, way back. But he was, right in there, lost in the playoff. The problem I have is his irons are just terrible. I still have him because his short game is crafty, and he does seem to be turning a corner. He's made now 5 straight cuts, even though he's not grabbing a ton of placement points. There are some other guys, obviously we're going to talk about this. The upper 7K range for me is pretty stacked. I like a lot of names in there.
Yeah, it is stacked for this type of field. And I will say, okay, he's going out first. He's been hot, meaning we've seen him make some birdies. At 70-1, and again, we don't talk betting too much in the show, but 70-1 first-round leader. It's interesting because he's going out first. He could go out and post that number, and I'm not saying he's going to win the tournament by any stretch, but I thought that was an interesting bet at 70-1. As we move on, let's see. We got Shane Lowry, Nick Watney, Trey Mullinax. I thought was an interesting one. I know that Nick Watney is getting some buzz. And then the last kind of marquee pairing for the morning, Sergio Garcia, Adam Hadwin, both guys I'm interested in this week. Paired up with Luke Donald, who came out of nowhere with that 65 last week at Memorial. Kind of faded on Sunday. Any interest in stacking those guys? Not specifically playing them. How about stacking them?
So you touched upon the Sergio Hadwin pairing. I don't have any Luke Donald. I can't get behind that. He's just an anomaly how he even competes, but good for him. The other two, though, are guys that I really like. I think Sergio, he's in an awkward price point because if you pay up, it's tough to get him as your second man in. And if you pay down, a lot of people are going to start with Webb, which I totally get. Mm-hmm. You could start with JT. So he's kind of just there. I think he makes a really good play. Hadwin, again, best Canadian in the field, just quality player. I have no problem going there. I think they make an interesting pairing and obviously interesting standalones.
For sure. I think that you can probably put, like you said, maybe a little hard to have Sergio as your second guy in, but doable, I guess, if you can fall in love with a couple of guys down low. So, all right, we will transition now into where we talk about some ownerships. And above 9K, pretty clear that the three guys that I'm about to mention are going to be the chalkiest. I mentioned at the top of the show, and you kind of agreed that it's really top heavy. We're going to get a ton of ownership up there. Looks like these three guys are standing out. DJ, for some reason, people want to play him over Brooks, which is interesting. And then Webb, you mentioned, and then Henrik Stenson. Looks like those three guys are going to come out on top. Are you going overweight on any of these guys, or are you taking the field average?
So DJ's a guy that, I'm certainly high on him like everyone else. Man, when you build, though, even just starting with him, it is difficult. So I did move some of those shares to Rory. I have them about even. When I went balanced, I started with Webb. I think a lot of people are going to do that. I was disappointed to see Stenson garner some ownership. I thought that the lack of results might temper that a bit, So I didn't get much leverage on any of them, but at the same time, I'm not making a big stand either. I have significant amounts of them. They're just going to be popular. So not going to make my week, certainly not going to break me either because I probably come in slightly over, but not a huge stand.
Yeah, and so here's the thing about this week, which I think is a good, iota for golf and DFS golf and in the industry where it's going. They put out a nice secondary $15K up top for a $5, which just gives me the ability to make more lineups. So I guess to a degree, am I going to have some DJ? Am I going to have Webb? Am I going to have Stenson? Yes, I am. But for the most part, I don't think I'm playing any of them in my bigger dollar lineups this week. Okay. I just think that you can get the same type of upside in a Brooks Koepka or in a Justin Thomas that we'll get to in a little bit if you're talking about DJ. Or if you're talking about Webb Simpson, I think that Sergio Garcia provides very similar stats and very similar upside. So, and we'll get to them. They're kind of in that leverage spot here in a bit. So I'll kind of give my thesis on Garcia to start. And one, Garcia, first off, he had that good finish at Wells Fargo. He lost so many strokes putting at Bethpage, and he missed the cut, I believe, on the number by missing a putt on the last hole.
Oh yeah,
and yeah, it was brutal for a lot of us. But the form is really good. Tee to green looks good. He's one of the best in the field at proximity under 125 yards, which you're going to see this week. So if we're going to get half the ownership and $200 cheaper, do we really think Webb's going to go out and beat Sergio this week?
I think for the leverage that you're talking about, Sergio is super interesting because Webb is a quality player. I think he's one of the safer options where when you can't putt like Sergio, we see what can happen despite being in form. So taking on more risk, but it's hard not to like him, certainly in MME style tournaments and top heavy tournaments. I think he makes a really interesting first man, and you can do a lot with him. He's not going to cripple your lineups. And he's a world-class player, great driver of the ball. So I am interested in Sergio. I think that's a guy I have no problem going to. The guy who got left out for me was Scott Piercy, and it's just a price thing. I couldn't click that name where I could pay, down for guys like Stenson and Sneds or up for guys like Sergio and Webb.
Yeah, and when I first started the week, that's how I thought most people were going to go, and then I see him kind of projected around 15%. And personally, I do like him because I thought he was going to be the leverage spot. Mm-hmm. Putting really well, which is unlike him. We know he's a great ball striker. So I'm inclined, but not as inclined as I was Monday morning. Truthfully, I've come off of him a bit. He may find one of my bigger dollar lineups still just because of the build. I guess when I put Stenson in against Piercy right now, Piercy's beat him head-to-head every single time they've gone up recently. I mean, PGA Championship, the week before the PGA Championship. So I guess that has been working. And if I am going to get a bit of an ownership discount, I'm taking it. What's interesting, I've been following, of course, what we've been chatting about, what you've been chatting about this week, and you are high on Snedeker, I believe, correct?
I am, yeah. Sneds is a guy, the thing I like about him, there are certain guys that I feel like price is, I don't want to say irrelevant, but it's less important because when Sneds plays bad, it's not going to be anywhere near anything he could blow up. He missed the cut. when he's on, he's got massive win equity. He gets going, dialed in with the wedges, makes a ton of putts. I think this is a good course for him. So he's a guy that I actually like when he's overpriced because it tempers the ownership. Yeah. You're not going to lose upside. What you're losing is safety, but he's already risky. Not a guy I really think, would be a cash play or anything like that. But as a tournament one-off, not a lot of people, I think, will go there relative to how talented he really is.
Yeah, I think that, you can probably go $700 cheaper with a guy we've already talked about, Hadwin, for your cash game lineups. But again, Snedeker, he gets on a roll. This course is 7,000 yards, so it takes his weakest part of his game out of it, which is obviously off the tee. And what I mean by weak is just he can't hit the ball 300 yards. He has hit it. He has improved his driving distance this year, but we know he's more on accuracy. We know he's a plotter and relies on the flat stick, which is fine. That's his game. So I'm interested in stats, maybe not as much as you, only because I found myself doing a lot of, and this is what I want to talk about. This is one of the next ones is I found myself playing a lot of Justin Thomas at 10,000. There's no way he's playing in this coming off the miscut. There's no way he's playing in this if his wrist hurts. There's just no chance.
Great. Yep.
So at this point, it's just a form thing, and he needs to get it back. So if he is going to get it back this week, I'm not saying he's going to, but if he does, we're talking about a $1,900 and $1,700 price difference between him and Brooks and Dustin, when that 3 months ago, 4 months ago, we were fine with paying $100 difference. So I guess I'm taking that and I'm looking at it as, JT's irons were pretty good last week. He struggled putting, which, he tanked to miss that cut. So where do you stand on JT?
He's a guy that, obviously coming off of last week, I was a little skeptical, but the more I dug, you know what? He played better than honestly I thought he scored last week. He was not bad. He was actually good on Thursday. Just couldn't avoid some really bad blowups, and he said as much in his presser today. So I totally agree. The injury concern is basically zero, because if he was even remotely hurt, he'd be resting the week before the U.S. Open. He's someone, when you talk about, and chat's actually talking about this right now, the big names, are they up for this? Are they treating it as a prep? JT, in that regard, I actually feel most confident with. He's coming here. He didn't have to play here. It was a late ad. So I'm sure he wants to get it going. And at that price, there's no doubt it's a discount when he's healthy.
Yeah, I think he was even more than a late ad. Like, he might even pass that Friday cutoff, and he had to actually replace somebody that dropped out in the field. So really, really interesting. Obviously, you don't see high-profile players make this change, but he feels he needs the reps, and he could come and get those reps and top five, he could even win, of course. It's Justin Thomas here. He's one of the best players in the world. So I think there's definitely some leverage there. So JT versus Kuchar, $500 difference. Are you going right to JT? I personally am. I can't get it.
Kuchar, nothing against Kuchar. Obviously missed the cut last week. I don't worry about that. I'm sure he'll play fine, but JT is just a guy if you're giving me discount and we're not seeing a big discrepancy ownership-wise, fire him up for me. Just an awkward build. That was my one concern. Because if you try to jam him with, I got to like him and Rory a little. I like that build, but it's really aggressive.
Yeah, I totally agree. I found myself doing a lot more Justin Sergio, Justin Hadwin, Justin Webb, Justin Piercy.
So him as your first man rather than his second.
Yep. It's just that if the top three come out of the top five, the big three, obviously, Rory, DJ, and Brooks, they come out of the top five in this tournament, you're going to gain leverage by fading them. But again, we've talked about this a lot. If you faded Patrick Cantlay last week at 25% owned at $10,200, you were in trouble unless you found yourself Matsuyama in 6 of 6. You were in a little bit of trouble. So I think that just goes to show playing those $11,000, $10,000 guys, you need them to go out and win and really perform. Or it can really hurt the lineup build. So Rory versus Brooks, if you can only get one. Sounds like Rory for you this week?
Oh, no question. I bet Rory against Brooks in the head-to-head market. So, Brooks is a guy, and again, I think we all know how good he is. He's unbelievable. Even before the PGA, he went out and he played well. He did not win. Sun King won, but he was there and he did everything he needed. Now, he said he hasn't touched a club since the PGA. That's somewhat concerning, but with Brooks, he can turn it on and off. I still think that more than likely we see a middling finish for him this week. He's not concerned with how he wants to get ready for next week. There's no doubt about it. After a miscut, I think Rory responds this week and plays pretty well.
Yeah, interesting. What was that line? It was the line which interests you. Again, this is a live before lock. This is primarily DraftKings. But hey, if we see a good line and we see some betting, certainly want to talk about it. So was it a line thing or just truly you believe Rory's in a better spot this week?
So the line was even. It was a pure toss up. I did not lay extra juice. And you know what, Rory, his year has been, I know he missed the cut last week, but it's been an absolute automatic top 10 basically every week. And although his wedges leave something to be desired, there's no doubt about it. I think him and DJ against Brooks were two things that I honed in on. I bet them both against Brooks this week.
Fair enough. I think we can figure out where you stand there. Last one, and again, it's a couple seconds. Garcia versus Piercy, I think, is a little different than Webb, which everyone seems to be going to. It sounds like you're Sergio versus Piercy, since you told me Piercy kind of missed. Is there another matchup versus Piercy in this 9K, or I'll throw in Bubba Watson or Jim Furyk? Is Piercy in over those guys for you? Since it's going to be kind of hard to mix them in with the two studs. And maybe it's just a total fade for you in this range altogether. We'll go Piercy, Watson, Furyk for our next three.
So it's honestly a kind of a dead range for me on the whole. I didn't get here a lot because I have some Rory, some DJ, and then when I'm using JT, there's no room for these guys. So I got to my Sneds, I got to my Stenson. Yep. The other ones, it's no problem with the plays. I mean, we talk about this. It's more of it's an opportunity cost thing for me. So I was not able to get to a lot of any of them.
Fair enough.
What do you make of Bubba? Sorry to interrupt, but what do you make of Bubba?
So here's the thing. The tee to green game was good. I just struggle playing Bubba Watson at golf courses that I know driver cannot be his best asset.
Yep.
It is the best club in his bag. There's no doubt about it. He says that it is. But then again, he's one of the better players in the field. He's got that Canadian connection, right, with his wife, if I'm not mistaken. She's from Canada, maybe. Maybe I'm totally off. I thought that's right. Anyways, beside the point, he's here.
He is here. He's another one who was awful, worst putting I've ever seen. He made Sergio look useful with the putter at Bethpage. So
I don't understand. It doesn't break at Bethpage. It's no break Bethpage. Anyways, we don't have to go back to that. Yeah, I guess if I'm playing Sergio, why aren't I playing Bubba? But Sergio had the results. Bubba didn't before. I don't know. I didn't get there. I find myself just taking the $600 and going from Hadwin, and then for my last position, instead of getting like a Brian Gay at 7,200, I'm able to go up into the range, which we'll get to in a minute, that you seem to be pretty high on, and I've got some players that I like as well. So that's kind of what I did. I pretty much skipped out. But one guy I got to ask you about, Jim Furyk is fine, cash game. I'm using him there. He just doesn't put up DraftKings points. Last week he came in the mid-30s, and Adam Hadwin, who came 50th, put up more points. So it's just that's my story on Furyk. Keegan Bradley, man, he screwed me last week. He's got a price increase, and it looks like ownership is still going to be there. Do you have any of him?
I have some. It is what it is. I was hoping, because that's what you get with him. You're going to get these blow-ups. I wanted to go right back to him because Keegan's a great ball striker, and if you take those out, it happens. I don't really worry about that. When I saw the ownership traveled with him, I knew that to get severe leverage, I was really going to have to allocate a lot, and I didn't want to do that. So I have some Keegan. I think he's a fine play, but you have Hadwin there. I think Ryan Palmer makes for an interesting, one-off as an aggressive line. Austin Cook, the low eights, guys that I don't think are going to be popular, and they're pretty viable for me.
Two leverage spots. You just nailed Austin Cook. Interested in him. He's popped a couple of times in the last few weeks. It's just he can't put 4 rounds together. Other one is Lucas Beauregard. I don't know why he's here. Maybe it's just a start for him, but
I don't know. I don't know.
What are we doing with Beauregard? He's my guy, but I don't see him here.
Neither do I. For me, Daniel Berger is in the same range. Your boy. Can't really sustain it, but he showed some life at the PGA. After 36 holes, he was cruising, fell apart. I think he's a fine play at flat 8. And then, like I said, when we bump into the high 7s, that's where the meat of my lineups are really coming from.
Sure, totally makes sense. And so just before we move on, I want to bring up that, as I mentioned, it's so top heavy that we literally only have 3 golfers below 8,000 that are going to be 10% or more owned. I'm just going to tell them to you. Aaron Wise, Joaquin Niemann, Nick Watney, and Eric Van Rooyen. Just really interesting. It means that we can get a spot pretty much anywhere. It happens in fields like this, especially the week before major. We get a lot of people that maybe not want to play or whatever. Of those 4, are any of them, all of them, or some of them in your player pool? And are you taking an overweight on any of the chalky lower price guys?
So I think I have exposure to all 4 of them actually. But the one Neiman, I mean, here we go. I really like him this week. He's done enough to suck me back in. Very good off the tee. Obviously, he's had flashes in his brief career with pretty much everything, but he's starting to be a little more consistent. Obviously, the putter, it's not the strongest club in his bag. I think we can determine that for certain at this point, but I'm confident enough he's gaining consistently tee to green, and he's just a good player. So I'm back in on the Chilean amateur, as I call him. Risky, but I'm doing it. What can I say?
It's one of the funniest names out there, but in a field like this that's got, a bunch of guys that are making their PGA Tour debut, I'll be very kind there, I guess, to put it that way. It makes sense. Here's the thing. We know that in certain golfers that putting comes first and everything else follows. And with Niemann, we started to see that a few weeks ago. And when he came in 3rd in Chile, and granted, it was the Latino America Tour. I'm not excited about him coming in 3rd. He should have won. However, what it did show us was when we looked at the stats and they sent out a few tweets and stuff, he had started to putt better. Then we saw him make a decent cut, came 30th, putted better there. Missed the cut at the PGA because he tanked in the last 2 holes. He just got a little nervous. He was right on that cut line. Again, a 30th place last week, and he's gaining strokes tee to green. So he's got a little bit of confidence with the putter. I know he's still losing strokes, but he was losing a lot of strokes before. I mean, he was worse than Jordan Spieth. So I do like Joaquin Niemann. I think that maybe I'm a bit early. The model, the Awesemo.com model has him 63% to make the cut, which is not bad. It's pretty good. But when you compare it to somebody who I want to talk to you about next, Eric Van Rooyen, 73% to make this cut. Obviously a fantastic player in Europe. What do you make of the 10% difference in cut making? And what do you make of Eric Van Rooyen? Just you can put him versus Niemann or even pair them up together.
He, of the 4 you mentioned, he's the toughest for me. The guy, I know mostly from Europe, obviously. We do see him. I don't want to say he's contending in majors, but he's not overblown by any stretch. He's had some quick starts. I don't even remember. I don't know if it was British but he's come out of the gate pretty quickly.
Yeah, he was out of the gate a couple.
At the Open, and obviously grabbed the top 10. At the PGA, so he's an impressive player. He also, not that you should rush from him and Kevin Tway look identical.
Oh my God,
it's disturbing.
They're both with Nike too. It's crazy.
Really shady business.
It's crazy.
We still have limited starts, a couple of WGCs, a couple of majors, obviously a talented player. I do think there's something to just playing events on the PGA Tour week in and week out. So I get it. He's a good player. Not a ton for me, though. I feel more confident in Niemann, honestly.
So he just qualified for the U.S. Open on Monday. He went through the sectionals. Do you take stock in – see, here's a player that he's not going to get many starts, but he just played 36 holes on Monday. He is likely looking forward to next week and playing Pebble. It's probably his first time competitively or one of the first times. Mm-hmm. I mean, him and Beauregard are 2 guys that I'm like, they need starts on the PGA Tour, but if I'm those guys, next week is important. It's, I may not get to play many majors if I'm them. So I don't know. I'm interested to see what your take is on just that element.
It's such a tough, and we've had a lot of subs ask that, and it's a great question. And we don't know, but, I think what you do, you take it case by case, and you bring up a point. EVR in particular is someone, it's not the best setup, I'll be honest. Just when you factor that in, major on deck, those are the type of players that I worry about a little because, they don't know how many U.S. Opens they're going to play. It's a huge step up for them. And that's someone that, obviously you got guys like Brooks and DJ. Yeah, they may be looking ahead, but they know, they've done this before. This is a totally new situation for the most part.
Sure is. So another guy that's pretty popular down this week, again, as we mentioned, is 70% to make the cut, Aaron Wise. Oh, actually, tell me, does Van Reen make the cut this week?
Yeah, I think he still finds the weekend, but not someone I think is going to be contending.
Aaron Wise was another one that kind of blew it for me. He's one that I actually so I was watching his back nine. He was on one of my important teams. He was on my Can't Lay Spieth team, and he had probably I would say 4 6-footers on Friday that he missed, and then he made
a
bomb on 17 to get to that mark that I thought the cut was going to slip to, and it ended up being 3 guys short. So he didn't get through. How about this week? 70% to make this cut in this type of field. What do you make of Wise?
No problem with him. Another guy, I don't love the fact that his best club is the driver. No doubt about it. But he's a good player, can do a little bit of everything. Obviously, he's won on tour. So it's been a somewhat rocky 2019 for him. Thought he was trending upward. Yeah, he missed the cut, but he missed. I do factor in that, he didn't egregiously miss it. He missed it on the number. Yep. It happens. So I definitely have some Wise. Again, I know I'm broken record behind Neiman, but still in the player pool.
He's in the player pool for me as well, but something like 10%, he's not going to get a spot in one of my big dollars.
Similar.
I would rather just drop a little bit lower to, the Canadians, Corey Connors, Mackenzie Hughes, or even a guy like Brian Harman, who is going to be the next guy I bring up and ask you about. Looks like he's about 60%, 61% to make the cut. I got a couple of stats for you that I'll throw out, but I'm going to get your thoughts first.
Brian Harman, I would hope has turned a little corner here. He had a really rough stretch. The ball striking is there. We know the guy can putt. Short course. This seems like a perfect fit. The price is not caught up because it's been bad. And I think if that's a guy that, this is not to go on a tangent, but when you're doing data-driven things, if he's turned a corner, there's a lot of bad data in there. He's going to be weighed down by months of just horrendous play. So I'm absolutely on him. Mid sevens, sign me up.
Yeah, over 70% of his fairways last week, which is a huge stat for him, especially to a course that's 7,000 yards, being a short hitter already. And something that is a huge indicator for him, I hit him at Eagle Point a couple of years ago, and one of the things that I looked at was his proximity with his wedges, and he was 15th in the field last week in proximity with his wedges under 125 yards. And it was a decent sample size. I think he had 15 opportunities as well. So I know that proximity stat is a fun one for people to kind of disguise and talk about. But sample size was pretty large, 15 attempts. So that just shows me that it is starting to round in form. He's played a ton of golf. And I only say golf because he's played in like the last 6 tournaments, I think. But he's missed the cut in a couple. However, this seems like a perfect opportunity for him to kind of right that ship that you mentioned. Stats have been getting better. So I'm also in Brian Harman this week. Okay, so next guy, Alex Noren, we already talked about. I think he's a good player. I think he's a really good player, actually. The driver's been pretty bad. The putting's been bad. Everything's been pretty bad. But we're turning a corner. 70 points DraftKings last week. Seems like you're in as well? A little bit?
I don't have a ton, but I'm still banking on his pedigree carrying him a little.
Okay. Zach Johnson.
CJ. I have some. I think he's a fine cash play. Him and Graham McDowell, I think they set up well, but CJ's game, I should just listen to myself with him. He's just not that good. He really has not done much this year. Still, get a wedge in his hand. I think he's fine this week and sails through the cut.
Yeah, probably me too. Graham McDowell came out and publicly said that he really wants to play in his home open. He has not qualified. This is an open qualifying series. I think it's the top 11 if you have not yet qualified. So that's an interesting kind of narrative for Graham McDowell on a 7,000-yard course.
Yeah, he's in play for sure.
I think he's definitely in play. He was next on my list. How about Russ Henley, who has had a really bad year again, but had a great start in his last start, 62% to make the cut.
I hope he makes the cut very badly. That's one of my biggest leverage spots on the entire slate. Russell Henley is a guy that and this is just arbitrary, I seem to get him right more often than not. I have a weird connection with him for some reason. It's been rocky. But this is a guy we've seen him, he's won shell before a major. The irons are starting to become a little more consistent. We haven't seen him putt a lick, and he is a good putter. I know this isn't Bermuda. That's not ideal. But if he can just keep it together off the tee, I think that Russell Henley at 7,500 makes for a fine play, and he's not going to be popular.
Yeah, no, he shouldn't be that popular. I had this weird feeling that you were going to like Russell Henley this week. I don't know why. When I was writing the name, I'm like, Ben's gonna be on him this week.
I really am, and I've picked my spots. I've been good with him because he's been struggling. I just think that Russell Henley is the type of guy I wouldn't be stunned to see him get in contention this week.
So how does 90+% of fairways sound?
Yeah, sign me up.
That's Ryan Armour, man. Last week, 91% of his fairways at the Memorial. If he does that this week with the course being so short, you think he can get inside the top 15? Because he was 22nd last week, and the irons weren't even that good.
I mean, that's the type of guy, you know what you're going to get. He hits fairways. He's consistent. Sometimes he's overmatched. Obviously here, that's not going to be an issue. Can he keep that up? Probably not. But if you're looking for someone to just kind of do his thing, in the Vaughn Taylor bucket of like just very consistent plays to their strengths, I get it. I totally get that play. I don't know how high the upside is still, but at the same time, this is a full field. So getting 6 of 6 through is going to be very difficult.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. What's the total upside in him? At 7,200, we need about a top 20 to see some good value. Let me see if I can get some stats. How was the points last week? I got it right in front of me here. 1 second.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest scorer out there, all in all. But again, it's more of an opportunity cost. If you say, I love my other 5, I just need someone to not break the team, he's one of your better options in the low 7s.
Yeah, so 68 points for a 22nd place it's not great when you compare and go look at an Adam Hadwin who came in 52nd and scored 64.5. So, like you said, not a scorer, but I think can get you through the cut. I think he's good for a cash game. I think he's probably good for their smaller field, the $150, or if you play the $400. I think he's fine for those because he's not going to hurt you that much. And again, 6 of 6, probably going to be somewhere in the 5% range this week. It's going to be a premium to get it through. So, all right, we got 2 more in this segment. David Lingmerth was definitely the course history guy last week, but comes here and seems like maybe this is the course from 50% for the model to make the cut, but it looks like he's kind of popular in DFS.
Yeah, that guy is really tough. He struggled a lot. Then he came to some courses that he's torn apart, and he fits. I'm actually against him this week. I don't really see it. I think I'm going to bank more on his just somewhat spotty play in recent weeks and months. So I'm not on Lingmerth this week. I went elsewhere.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I am neither on him as well. I'm just not quite there yet.
No, there's other Chat just mentioned Sean Stefani. If you want a real dark horse, he's at 7,300. I have no problem going there. Sign me up.
Yep, totally agree. So, okay, last guy, and this is an interesting one. We have a few of these type of guys this week, but the one that I want to bring up is the senior, or I guess he might actually be making his PGA Tour debut. I'm not sure. I couldn't find anything about him turning pro, but he's a senior and his college career is wrapped up. And I'm talking about Colin Morikawa out of California. Have you heard of him, or is this the first time you're hearing of this kid?
So that name is somewhat familiar, but I couldn't pick him out of a lineup of 2 people.
Yep. Understand.
Go on. Passing right back to you because I have 0 of him. Are you playing him?
FanDuel, maybe I have a couple because he's the bare min there. In the $9 where I have 150 entries, I'll probably throw him in a couple. Here's the thing: number 3 ranked amateur in the world, ended his career. He got as high as number 1. I believe that might actually be Justin Sue. Hold on a second. Let just give me
he's
2.
a USC guy. Justin Sue's interesting.
He's a Southern California. This guy is California, if I'm not mistaken. Correct.
Max Homa product. There you go.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. He's California Bear. Yeah. I thought he was. I just thought. I know I was writing a World Amateur. Here we go. Yep.
He missed the Safeway cut in 2016. There you go. That's my now extended.
Okay, so here we go. Now, okay, he was number 3. I was correct, and he is turned pro, so this will be his first pro event. He also did just you'll see him next week too, and this will be a good lead in. You'll see him next week at the U.S. Open. He just qualified, so he's going to get 2 starts here. So we'll get a little bit of a sample size. So interested, or you want to see him a couple of times?
No, I mean, he's the type of guy, probably keep an eye on him and put it in the bank for future use. Not going there this week, but good for him, obviously getting pertinent starts.
Definitely to get some thoughts. Okay, so before we go into the FanDuel values, we like to take some GPP questions or some questions from our Slack chat. So got one from our buddy Coolers. Love these. So you ready?
I'm ready. Here we go. Rapid fire him.
I'm going to rapid fire. Peter Malnati, playing pretty well lately.
Yeah, great putter. I think this is actually a fine course for him. So I have some Malnati.
Canadian Nick Taylor?
No.
JJ should have probably made the cut last week, Spawn.
Better make the cut this week. Another benefit from the short course. I'm on him.
Johnson maybe gets in like a couple of tournaments a year now, Wagner.
I'm passing that one to you. What are you doing with him? I don't have any.
I don't know, dude.
Yeah,
no.
Mustache man.
If he's got the mustache rocking, and I see it in round 1, then I'll play him for showdown in round 2. Always popping in the stats, Nate Lashley.
Nasty Nate. None for me. I actually went to Hank LaBoida if I had to. A couple other dart throws in that low 6,700 range.
Yeah, like 6.7, right? Yeah. Yep. I'll give you, since you just said one there, the guy that I looked to at 6,700 was, I think I dipped a little bit lower, actually. I did. Tyler Duncan. Sorry, he's 68.
Yeah, he's playing all right.
Yep, he's playing. Came in 8th last week. Shorter course should benefit him. So, okay, Danny Willett.
Didn't get there.
Danny Lee, and then another Danny. So, sorry, go ahead. Danny Willett first.
Yeah, I'm impugning all the Dannys. I don't have any Willett or Lee. I'm close on both. I could make the case. I don't think there's anything wrong with those plays.
Willett is interesting. He's been playing good. Short course. If you can keep it in play, he's interesting to me. Sub the A for an E, and tell me about Denny McCarthy.
Don't have any. I used Fratelli a lot, so he was the same price for me. It was pretty simple. I just used Fratelli.
Back to the well.
I'm in the well.
And you're already in there.
I fell in the well. If Fratelli misses the cut, serious problems, because I think he sets up very well.
Sebastian Munoz.
I looked at him really close. I didn't even know he was in the tournament till like 7:30 or an hour or two ago. He's playing better than I thought he was. I have a tiny sliver of him.
You look up any stats on him when you were looking up, and if so, want to share them?
Sure. So he was a guy, like I said, I just happened to be looking at guys, right below Fratelli, and I clicked on his name. The approach game was what really stood out. Obviously, he was 38th at Wells Fargo, 10th at Byron Nelson, but he gained on the irons 2.7, 3.8. He's a good putter, so he gained strokes at the putting. We've seen him contend a little on tour, so it's not going to be totally foreign to him. Obviously, at Greenbrier a couple years back, he really got into the mix. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but this is a guy, certainly needs every FedEx point he can grab. So he's making a little run at it. If he can just hold it together off the tee, that's not the worst. I wish he was cheaper. That's my one concern.
Yeah. Something that I found interesting, a couple of guys did it. He was one. He came in 7th. Grayson Murray was another one. He came in 2nd. They both played the Rex Hospital Open last week, which is on the web.com. I don't know if maybe I'm actually not sure as to why they played in it. Maybe they thought that they needed to get some web points or to solidify them qualifying for the web.com tour finals if they don't make the PGA. I don't know. Thought that was interesting. Jose de Jesus Rodriguez. So kind of that the guys that are not doing well from that web.com tour reshuffle bracket are played last week, which I thought was interesting, obviously, with the PGA Tour having having an invitational only. So 7th place. So obviously Munoz is in pretty good form. He shot all rounds in the 60s. So I got to be honest. I think I'm going to end up with more Munoz than I thought I was going to the start this day.
Oh yeah, I mean the over under on me. He was a heavy favorite. I didn't like I said I didn't even know he was in the tournament. But this is a guy who's playing some pretty good golf. I wish he filled out. The problem I have is that you've got guys like JJ Spawn. You can get $100 and get Danny Lee or Fratelli or people like that. If he was 6,700, I would actually have a really big stake in Munoz because I think he's going to play well.
Yep, me too. Okay, so I think this is a fun one. I put in my article this week, all the Canadians, or at least I listed 19. I think that there's 20. Maybe I missed one somewhere. I don't know if you get a chance to check that out. But besides Adam Hadwin, Corey Connors, and Mackenzie Hughes, is there any Canadians that you're heavily playing? If not, how about any other guys that for a betting side or even that you might have a couple of shares of in DFS?
So there's nobody that I really got to in any significant way, but chat, this is a perfect segue. Chat was just asking, and I think it's a sharp call by who just said, the friend of the show, Thomas. Roger Sloan, your boy. Yeah. What do you make of him? Because I totally get that line there. He's playing some decent golf. We've seen him get hot. Then he went away, but was second in Puerto Rico. Rebounded, was good at Charles Schwab. So do you have any interest there as a really aggressive, probably a true 1%er?
Yeah, he's a guy that can get really, really hot quickly. We've seen him do it a couple of times this year. Those guys are always really tough to play at more than, a 5% clip. Yeah, tough one. I will say, rated by my model, how I make my GPP lineups, he probably ends up in 5 or 10%. So the answer is yes, because, again, if he's played decently this year and he's Canadian, I'm just giving him a chance. It's been 1954 since the Canadians won. So long. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but
probably not. Hadwin, to me, Hadwin's going to have to do it if he's going to do it. But
one other one, a Canadian, since we're talking about that in that form, all the way down here, Adam Svensson.
Yeah, he's the other one I almost mentioned.
The green numbers look good, but he hasn't made a cut. What's going on with him? He sucks at putting?
Yeah, him and I don't even think this guy's Canadian, but Anders Albertson has missed like 30 cuts in a row since I played him at Waste Management.
Yes, we did.
Disturbing string. It's tough. It's really been bad. And Graham Dillette is not here to help out the Canadian side. He's just still injured. Get well soon. If you're watching the show, I doubt that, but maybe. I'm not getting too crazy with them.
Yeah, I was going to say rumors are that, some people watch it. So if we ever talk bad about you, pro golfer, and you're watching this, don't take it personally. We're just here trying to help people make some money. Just
to get them views. Yeah. Get them likes. What can we say?
Okay, so just quickly, and again, if you have any more questions, go ahead and ask in the YouTube chat about specific players. Cooler's always great for some good bits. Anybody else has any throws that they want to ask us about, let us know. But top 5 values on FanDuel this week, it actually was really easy to find. Dustin Johnson, I'm going to play all the DJ on FanDuel. It's so easy to make a lineup with him over there. Adam Hadwin, also ridiculously cheap. Webb Simpson, Sergio Garcia, a little more expensive. Scott Piercy, a little more expensive. Any names that I left out that you'd like to bring up that you think should be a good focus over on FanDuel?
So, yeah, you mentioned obviously Hadwin was the guy that stood out. And you get a little more flexibility at the top. You can do things like 2 of the big 3 if you want and be pretty comfortable. And then those guys that we kind of talked about, I have no problem with, like Harmon. Kevin Tway is the guy that I have some exposure to. They're in the low $9,000 range on FanDuel. No problem with that. And then, as we always talk about on Yahoo, you can really search. You can get guys crazy low. I mean, for me, Russell Henley is $24 over there. He's sub 9K on FanDuel. Mackenzie Hughes is $23. Like that's basically the min. $20 is the min. So you're getting quality mid-range plays as your last man in.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are the easiest way to do that is to just get all 3 of the salaries, get the names, and put them all right next to each other. If in the next column in Excel you want to put a difference, in all 3 of them, you can do that too. But it is something I use, especially for FanDuel playing over. I can't play Yahoo yet because I'm in the state of Florida. Hopefully that'll change soon. But if I could play, I would certainly use that same type of strategy every now and again. So, all All right, before we end with the hottest takes, we're going to just spend a couple of minutes giving our first thoughts on the U.S. Open. Prices were released yesterday. No surprise to see up at the top, but certainly a little surprises starting in that 10K range with Jordan Spieth at 10.2 and Patrick Cantlay at 10K. Is it setting up for another Patrick Cantlay 25+% owned? I mean, seems like it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I took away from this week, a lot of times it shapes the narrative because the prices are released. I don't think we're going to see much shape because we've got the big names and they're already priced up. Like Brooks can't go anywhere. He's not going to get any higher. So that's going to be something obviously Pebble will dig into. It's not going to play. I'll get this out of the way right now. Don't be looking at the Celebrity Pro-Am. That is irrelevant. It's not going to play like that at all. This is going to be, incredibly difficult, not Larry the Cable Guy pin locations. So
yeah,
that's my spiel.
On top of that, I've seen some pictures, and first of all, Pebble Beach is top 5 golf course in the world. There's no doubt about it. I've never played, but I mean, I've seen it enough. I will tell you that the collars, specifically around the greens, that rough there is at least double the length of what it is for a Larry the Cable Guy in February. So if you are not hitting greens next week, it's not going to be like LGC guy. So first start. So I'll just talk quickly about the content. 75 golfers were exempt into the field. They had a bunch of different categories that ranges from, former winners, former major winners, top 60 in the world at specific dates. So 75 people got in that way. And then we had 75 qualifiers come from the sectional and local qualifyings. You ready for how many people tried this, though? Are you ready for the statistic?
It's got to be massive.
Oh, my God. So, dude, it's insane. 8,256 golfers started. Only 75 made it. That's less than 0.1. That's a little less than 1% chance to make it.
Win the drive the green style. There you go.
Your odds were a little bit better if you made it past. I think it was 500 for sectionals, 70 spots. So what I'm going to do is for those 75 golfers, some of them you'll know, some of them you'll never have heard of. Some of them are players that you're going to want to know about. So I'm actually going to be starting tomorrow. I'm going to do 10 a day for the next 6 days, highlighting those golfers, similar to what we did for the Masters. I'm going to ask Ben to give me some notes on some specific players that he may like on each day.
Definitely.
That'll be free. So that'll be some fun content. That'll be starting tomorrow. And then, of course, we'll have our main slate plus some other things that Ben and I will be working on for next week. So really excited. Things have been going great in the U.S. Open. I mean, what a venue we have.
It's going to be great. Can't wait. We'll obviously be digging into that. If you haven't signed up, perfect time to sign up. In the meantime, hit that like button, though. But we do have a couple of good questions, and then we'll get to hot takes.
Awesome.
So one guy, dear God, can we ever get through a show without Jonas Blix coming up, who's played decent golf? Didn't make it for me. It was more just like kind of a price thing. He's in that loaded range with EVR and the gang at 7,800. You have any feel on him or just kind of indifferent?
Well, I will say that some people nailed him last week. I got to be honest. He was written up in a few places, and I give them all the credit in the world. It was a good find. I think it was a good course for him coming off the 20th place, but I'm going to take that we've seen a plateau.
I think that's fair. And then I think this is just a good question right before we get to the hot takes about the local, there's a lot of local guys. There's a lot of Canadians we've truly never heard of, guys on the Canadian tour. I'm personally not chasing it. I've seen a couple names thrown out there. Maybe one of the, we've seen a guy here and there getting contention, hometown hero, but I just don't know these guys. So I'm letting other people do that. Not for me.
Yeah. What was the one that was brought up? Let's see if I know.
Gligic.
Okay. So the thing about Gligic, that's actually one that I'm interested in. I don't know if he's a local guy. If he is, I apologize. But what I know about him is he was on the Mackenzie Tour and he got the exemption through he's the leading, get this, it's funny. He's the leading web.com tour money earner from this year that previously played on the Mackenzie Tour. It's a weird exemption, but it gets him in. He's won on the web.com tour this year, so it's likely he gets a PGA Tour card and we see him next year. So I'm actually interested. At 6,300 on DK, 7,000 on FanDuel. I'll have probably 5% on each. I think it's a good dart throw.
Get over on, yeah. I mean, that's the one thing I'll say. if you're going to play some of these guys, you want to take a couple, don't play 30, play 5. You're going to get massive leverage. So you're not going to dilute your portfolio too much. And you never know. If a guy's playing well, yeah, for a lot of these guys, I just don't know.
Oh, I actually got one more Canadian name. This one's going to be good for you. If it was on Glen Abbey, I would say, nope, there's no sense in playing this guy. I don't think he can compete there. But at 7,000 yards, how about David Hearn?
I forgot about – he's an actual professional golfer from Canada.
Yes, he is.
Where is he? Oh, flat 7.
Yep. It's a little expensive. He was added to the field late, so a lot of people may not know he got in as an alternate, which is great for him because this is the course and spot where you want to be. It's not a big play for me, but on FanDuel at 8,000, he opened up an opportunity for me to get 4 studs in there. I'm not going to lie to you.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I will say he misses a lot of cuts, obviously, but when he doesn't, he's been grabbing some decent finishes, fringe top 15s, top 20s, and that's more than enough to get you there if he can just survive. Big ass to get through the cut for him, but hey, you know what? Someone's going to have to get through. And if you're playing the top end studs, we're all going to be in the same boat because you're going to have to take somebody uncomfortable at the bottom.
Definitely.
So do you have I was close. Decky made a pseudo run. I thought I was going to nail a hot take. I got mine. I'm going right off the bat here. I got mine.
All right, let's do it.
Henley, top 5.
Oh,
he's going to get it going this week.
I love
it. Top 5 at, pretty damn good odds.
Yeah, very good odds, yep.
So it would be a nice little payoff if that hits.
Yeah, man, I thought you were going to have that with Decky. What was my hot take? I forgot it last week.
I forgot.
It was Cantlay was going to win.
It probably was. It
probably was. That's not too hot of a take because he was playing really well. Decky kind of was too. All right, I'm going to go with – I get 20 chances at this, so it's not really fair. I'm going to give a Canadian a top 5 this week. Okay. I really think that we get a professional Canadian golfer, one that is a card-carrying PGA Tour member, a chance to win the golf tournament on Sunday. I don't know. When I say a chance, I mean like within 4 or 3 late on Sunday. Likely to be Hadwin. Maybe Mackenzie Hughes gets really hot with the putter. But if I was a betting man on that, it would probably be Hadwin. I just think that it's time. There's been so many stories about how good Canadian golf is right now with how many card-carrying members they have. It is the most they've had in a while. So, I got so many chances, right, Ben? I mean, I'm covering what?
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
4th of the field or something. Maybe not a 4th of the field, but so, yep, that's my hot take. Really excited for the next week, though. Still huge prize pools out this week, and, of course, massive prize pools next week we'll jump into. Any other parting thoughts before you send us off?
No, I like you said, we're in the swing of it now. Major on deck. This would be a good one. Hop in Slack if you haven't signed up. We hope to see you in there. It's always fun. We got a ton of stuff behind the paywall. Plenty of content next week, so keep an eye out. You have any questions, you find us on Twitter, as always. Appreciate you, as always. Good stuff tonight.
Yeah, good chat tonight. I did see you raise your eyebrows a couple of times, so I can.
Well, you got some, we got the whole cast of characters. It's great to see everyone supporting the show, as always. So good luck. On that note, we'll get out of here. We'll be back next week with the U.S. Open.
Cheers, everybody.